The year is 1911. Europe is in the golden age of steam and steel. It is an era where humanity believes it has finally conquered nature. We are building taller buildings, faster ships, and longer railways. The impossible is becoming possible every single day. In Italy, the Zanetti railway company wanted to prove that they were the future of travel. They didn't just want to build a train, they wanted to build a palace on wheels. A locomotive that would rival the legendary Orient Express. And so, they built it. A state-of-the-art locomotive pulling 3 carriages of pure, unadulterated luxury. The interiors were lined with polished mahogany, velvet seats, and crystal chandeliers. To celebrate its maiden voyage, the Zanetti company launched a massive promotional campaign. They invited 106 people for a free, exclusive joyride. These were not ordinary people. They were wealthy aristocrats, influential politicians, socialites, and top-tier journalists. The route was meticulously planned. It would take these high-society passengers on a breathtaking journey through the scenic Lombardy region of northern Italy. But the highlight of the trip, the main event, was meant to be the brand-new Lombardy Mountain Tunnel. At over half a mile long, this tunnel was a marvel of modern engineering, carved directly through the heart of a solid stone mountain. In 1911, passing through a mountain was a thrilling, almost terrifying novelty. None of the 106 passengers boarding the train that sunny July morning knew that they were about to become the subjects of the most terrifying, unexplained mass disappearance in human history. They were about to enter a tunnel and step entirely out of our dimension. The day of the launch was perfect. The sky was a pristine, cloudless blue. A crowd gathered at the station to cheer as the magnificent Zanetti steam engine roared to life, blowing a massive plume of white smoke into the sky. Inside the train, the atmosphere was electric. Waiters poured expensive champagne. A string quartet played softly in the background. Passengers looked out the large glass windows, marveling at the Italian countryside rolling by. For the first few hours, the journey was flawless. As the train approached the Lombardy Mountains, the landscape grew darker. The towering peaks cast massive, jagged shadows over the railway tracks. The excitement in the carriages peaked as the gaping, pitch-black mouth of the mountain tunnel came into view. But as the train drew closer, the environment began to change. According to later reports, the pristine summer weather suddenly collapsed. A biting, unnatural cold swept through the valley. The air grew heavy. Then, the fog appeared. It didn't roll in from the sky. It seemed to seep directly out of the stone of the mountain itself. And it wasn't normal fog. It was thick, viscous. It had a strange, milky white luminescence, glowing softly in the shadows of the mountain. Inside the train, the mood shifted from excitement to deep, instinctual dread. The string quartet stopped playing. The passengers fell silent. The air inside the carriages suddenly smelled of ozone, that sharp metallic scent you smell right before a massive lightning strike. The hairs on the passengers' arms stood up. The air was thick with static electricity. As the nose of the locomotive breached the glowing white fog at the tunnel's entrance, a sound echoed through the valley. It wasn't the sound of the train engine. It was a hum. A deep, vibrating, low-frequency hum that rattled the windows, shook the crystal glasses off the tables, and vibrated deep within the bones of everyone on board. Panic erupted. Passengers began to scream as the fog bled through the cracks of the doors, filling the luxurious cabins with a thick, suffocating mist. In the rear carriage, 2 men, overcome by sheer primal terror, made a split-second decision that would save their lives, but haunt them forever. They forced open the heavy side door of the moving train. Looking ahead, they saw the front carriages dissolving, not just disappearing into the dark, but literally fading away into the glowing mist, as if the train was being erased from reality. Without thinking, the two men threw themselves from the speeding train, tumbling violently down the rocky embankment and into the mud. Bruised, bleeding, and gasping for air, they looked up just in time to watch the final carriage of the Zanetti train slip into the fog.
And then, nothing. The humming stopped. The static electricity vanished. The glowing fog evaporated in an instant. The mountain was silent. The two men dragged themselves to the nearest town and found the authorities. They were hysterical, speaking of glowing mist, a dissolving train, and a terrifying vibration. The local police assumed they were drunk or suffering from the trauma of a derailment. But when the police arrived at the Lombardy Tunnel, they realized the men were telling the truth. The police expected to find a derailed train, twisted metal, and the bodies of the wealthy passengers. Instead, they found nothing. A search party, armed with heavy gas lanterns, walked the entire half-mile length of the tunnel, from the entrance to the exit. They scoured every inch of the stone walls. They checked the tracks. The tracks were perfectly intact. There were no scorch marks on the ceiling. There was no luggage, no debris, no broken glass. A 100-ton steam locomotive, 3 massive carriages, and 104 people had completely, inexplicably vanished. The Zanetti Railway Company was thrown into a state of sheer panic. How do you explain the disappearance of an entire train to the families of the most powerful people in Italy? They launched a massive cover-up. The company paid off the local press. They discredited the 2 survivors, locking one of them in a psychiatric ward for severe trauma. They officially sealed the Lombardy Tunnel with heavy stones, declaring it structurally unsafe. Years passed. Decades passed. During World War II, the mountain was heavily bombed by Allied forces, causing the tunnel to collapse entirely. The physical evidence of the mystery was buried under thousands of tons of rock. The story of the Zanetti train faded into myth, a ghost story told by Italian grandmothers to frighten children. Until a researcher decided to look outside of Italy. They realized that if the train didn't exist in space, perhaps it had shifted in time. The most terrifying piece of this puzzle was not found in Europe. It was found over 6,000 miles away, in the dusty, forgotten archives of a psychiatric hospital in Mexico City. A researcher sorting through 19th century medical records stumbled upon a patient intake log that froze his blood. The date on the log was 1840, exactly 71 years before the Zanetti train was even built. According to the chief psychiatrist's detailed notes from that year, a massive incident had occurred in the streets of Mexico City. Local authorities had arrested a massive group of people who appeared out of thin air, wandering aimlessly in a state of absolute shock. The number of people arrested? Exactly 104. The records state that these 104 people were dressed in bizarre, unknown fashions, clothes that were entirely foreign to 1840s Mexico, but perfectly matched the high society fashion of 1910s Italy. None of them spoke Spanish. They were frantic, speaking in an Italian dialect, crying, screaming, and desperately searching for their families. When the doctors finally found a translator, the story the patients told was impossible. They all claimed they had been traveling on a massive metal tube that breathed fire and smoke. They said the tube went into a mountain, a white fog swallowed them, and suddenly they were standing in the hot streets of an unknown city. In 1840, the concept of a train was practically alien in Mexico. The doctors immediately diagnosed the entire group with mass hysteria and severe schizophrenia. But there was one final, chilling detail in the medical logs. A piece of physical evidence that the doctors locked away in an evidence box. unable to explain it. One of the Italian men, begging the doctors to believe him, emptied his pockets. He handed them a small, beautifully crafted silver cigarette box. The doctor recorded the brand name etched into the silver. When modern researchers checked that brand name, they discovered that the company did not exist until the year 1907. A man in 1840 was carrying an item from the future.
What happened to the 104 passengers? The medical records state they never recovered. They lived out the rest of their days locked inside that Mexican asylum, trapped in a time period they did not belong in, separated from everyone they loved by 71 years of history. Did the Zanetti train encounter a localized tear in the space-time continuum? A wormhole triggered by the specific atmospheric conditions of the mountain and the heavy electromagnetic output of the train? Quantum physicists have long theorized about time slips, microscopic fractures in reality where the past, present, and future bleed together. Was that glowing white fog the visual manifestation of a time rupture? Or is this entire story an elaborate hoax? A legend passed down through generations that accidentally perfectly aligns with historical medical anomalies. We may never know the absolute truth, but somewhere, trapped in the soil of Mexico City, lie the bones of 104 time travelers who took a train ride into oblivion. What do you believe happened to the Zanetti train? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you want to uncover more of the world's most terrifying, unexplained mysteries, make sure you hit the subscribe button to Miles with Dreams. Stay curious, stay safe, and remember, time is never as solid as it seems.